Lots going on in the world of golf, the LIV Tour, and so much more. Senior writer from ESPN on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line here on the Rich Eisen Show, Kevin Van Valkenburg. How you doing, sir?
I am good. It's a lovely day in London, not too cold and not too rainy, so it's kind of a perfect London day.
Okay, very good. I like that. Let's just jump right into it. Explain to me what's going on with these press conferences and walk me through what's going on with this tour, man. It just seems to be weird to start off.
I think
with that.
I think the story has kind of caught non-golf people unaware a little bit because it's sort of been building for a couple of years, but maybe people didn't think it was really real. But there's sort of a breakaway tour that is, or not even breakaway, but a startup tour that is funded by essentially the public investment fund in Saudi Arabia that a lot of the top golfers in the world are getting paid a ton of money to go and play for. And this is the first week of its tour. And, I think people have probably heard some about the sort of controversy that Phil Mickelson caused when he kind of said that these were scary MFers that he wasn't sure if he wanted to work with, and it caused a whole kerfuffle. A lot of people thought it might be dead, but this tour kind of keeps rising again, kind of like The Undertaker, and now it is really sort of threatening the PGA Tour's sort of singular business model in professional golf. And so today was the first time we saw Mickelson emerge from a self-imposed hiatus that he sort of took after these comments came out in a book that Alan Shipnuck wrote about Phil. And Phil, I would say the best way to describe how he was sort of contrite, but also a little bit still calculating, trying to kind of shore up his side of things and temper down some of the criticism that he's faced. And, I think that this thing is really here to stay, and the PGA Tour has got its hands full in terms of what it's going to do, because more and more people, I think, are going to see that, well, there hasn't been that much backlash to guys doing it. And so I want to go there and get my 150, 200 million like Phil and Dustin Johnson and Bryson DeChambeau did.
All right, so that's because you mentioned Bryson DeChambeau, Patrick Reed also joining this tour. It was announced today, and that's you mentioned that figure, $200 million for Phil, and we're here on NBC Sports on Peacock, as well as NBC Sports Audio, SiriusXM on the Rich Eisen Show. Back with the Rich Eisen Show here on terrestrial radio audience. Kevin Van Valkenburg of ESPN joining us here on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line. Kevin, you mentioned $200 million fee for Phil, and you also said for Dustin Johnson. I mean, is this equity firm that is funded by the Saudis giving out a quarter of $1 billion almost to every single player that says yes to playing on this tour? Is that what's happening?
Not every single player is getting that, certainly. Some of the big names, the big fish, in particular, Phil was kind of one of their big targets, because not only was he willing to come do it, but he was, willing to sort of recruit other players and try to set up the model for how the league could be run. And so, no one knows exactly like how many millions some people are getting, but you hear, 30 million for guys who have one PGA Tour win, who are young, and, $1 million here for guys who were a few years ago the U.S. Amateur champion or the NCAA champion. And so it's a mixture of kind of old and young. And, I think the complicated thing is that the Saudis have decided that it's in their best interest to kind of show the world that they're a country that can be invested in and taken seriously, and that they want businesses in particular to sort of look at stuff like their investments in Formula One, their investments in this tour, their purchase of Premier League teams, and say, I think I'm comfortable investing in Saudi Arabia. The public backlash isn't that significant. We don't have to always talk about Jamal Khashoggi and some of the executions that they've carried out on LGBTQ people. So I think that it's not really a tour. You have to think of this, Rich, like none of this is intended to ever make back this money. They're not giving Dustin Johnson or Phil Mickelson this money because they think we'll turn a profit in a few years on the golf. They're fully comfortable, it seems like, losing all that money because the sort of larger goals are they want to build cities in Saudi Arabia. They want European and Asian and American money to feel comfortable coming into their country. And, you know, it's a complicated moral issue, but I think that their bet is looking like it could sort of be the right one because they have a lot of money to throw around. And for every time that people talk about, hey, wasn't that neat when Bryson won that tournament in Portland or Bedminster or Jeddah or, you know, wherever they end up playing, Trump Doral, that was a great opportunity for them to sort of launder their reputation a little bit after some kind of pretty controversial things.
Kevin Van Valkenburg of ESPN right here on the Rich Eisen Show. So when this kimono gets lifted in the manner in which you've described in a question and answer period with these players in these introductory press conferences, what are their responses to it?
Well, it's clear that they've all been coached to sort of sell this as, no, this isn't about the money. This is about growing the game and reinventing golf. And, you know, we want to bring a younger crowd to golf. And, you know, it just doesn't really feel like any of them believe any of that deep in their hearts. Like, they wouldn't be here if it was sort of just about growing the game of golf. And in some ways, like, you almost wish they could just say, like, you know what? It's a lot of money, and I decided to take it because I want to make a lot of money and I want to work a lot less. And I don't really care about the implications to the PGA Tour, which is set up as a nonprofit. I don't care what that means for the future of those other people who stay. I want to make a lot of money. And, you know, it's kind of funny to sit there and hear guys talk about, yeah, the reason that I'm coming to play this tour is because it has a shotgun start. Not, you know, because I'm getting $100 million. I really like the idea of a shotgun start so that everyone has a fair draw. And if he's almost kind of chuckle sitting there because some of them trying to sell it with a straight face, some of them are better at selling it than others. And, you know, in that respect, nobody's ever been better at selling products than Phil Mickelson since Arnold Palmer, really.
So what is happening in the front offices of the PGA Tour right now, Kevin?
I think that there's a little bit of a panic probably going on. There's certainly some, you know, worry that they're going to lose more people. I think you have to understand, Rich, like the PGA Tour benefited a long, long time from being set up as a nonprofit. It essentially allowed them to pay, like, to duck out on essentially $200 million in taxes. ESPN, Paul Levine did a story about this. You know, it's almost 10 years ago, so it probably would work out to be like $400 million now. But that setting up as a nonprofit means that they cannot, like, give money directly to the players just for sort of showing up. And it has sort of like come home to roost, and then it hamstrings them a little bit because a lot of athletes in every single sport, they want guaranteed money, and who can blame them? Like injury or performance, like if you play poorly one year in golf, you know, you're not going to get paid a lot of money. And so the PGA Tour just simply cannot, by legal rules, hand over money to people. They have to sort of invent reasons like, oh, this is for the, you know, the player performance thing. This is what drives fan interest, what's referred to as the PIP. So they gave Phil $8 million last year for driving fan interest, and Tiger $10 million for, you know, being one of the most Googled recognizable athletes, even though he didn't hit a single shot on the PGA Tour. All of those things still pale in comparison to the $200 million that, you know, the public investment fund that LIV Golf people can give someone like Phil or Dustin or Bryson. And so I don't really know exactly what the answer is going to be for the PGA Tour. They can't, I think, forever rely on sort of the loyalty or the morality of people like Justin Thomas or Rory McIlroy, who both come out strongly against joining LIV, because that's not going to last forever. Like, money sort of always talks in every professional sport, and oil money dominates the world. And I think that what we're seeing is that it makes sense that it would eventually kind of come for sports. Like, people were kind of aghast when it came for Premier League soccer and F1, and now it's coming for golf.
Well, I mean, the concept of the tour card, Kevin, Dustin Johnson flat out said, I'm resigning, I'm out. Phil said, "Why would I give it up? I spent so much time in my entire career to get what I got. I'm not giving it up. I'll play in the majors." And then there's the issue of whether he's serving out a PGA Tour suspension. He demurred on that, saying, "I'm not talking about tour issues," and then directly responded to a question about whether he's given up his card or not. So what is the tour potentially going to just play this out, hope that there are some young stars that everybody's going to want to see to supplement the guys who they're not going to allow to come on? Will they eventually allow them to play in some of these events if they're past winners, top 10 winners? I mean, like what wiggle room might they have here, do you think?
Yeah, it's a really tough question, in part because, like, if you're Dustin Johnson, let's say Dustin Johnson hadn't resigned his PGA Tour card, and he wanted to play in the Valspar or the Arnold Palmer or some tournament. If you're the tournament committee chairman of the Valspar or the Arnold Palmer, and Dustin Johnson wants to play in your tournament, how do you sort of be okay with the PGA Tour saying no, like that? We know that might help your gate, it might help your sort of, the amount of money that you can donate to charity, but we're going to hold firm on this, and he's not going to, be allowed to go. It's going to be a tough position for them. I mean, I think they have to kind of stand with what they sort of said their punishments were going to be, because they've made a big talk and several times spoke to all the players and said, if you do this, you'll be subject to discipline. You're going to be suspended. And I think it would be kind of ridiculous to think that Phil hasn't been suspended on some level. Like, why would you not say, like, oh yeah, no, I haven't been suspended. I haven't had that conversation. But it's pretty clear that trying to set up a rival tour and giving them documents, allowing your lawyers to draft some of that legal language is kind of grounds for suspension, even as an independent contractor of a particular tour. So I think that there's a very good chance that this becomes a legal issue, that it goes to court, that we have a court case that could go to district court and Supreme Court of Mickelson versus the PGA Tour. And I think in part, Phil probably would not mind that kind of fight. He doesn't, I think, have outright animosity towards the PGA Tour. He feels on some level like it has allowed him to live a pretty amazing life, and that he's also kind of quick to sort of say, I've given a lot to the tour. I've kind of helped given a lot of value over the years. And he's right. Like, nobody besides Tiger, has won almost 50 years. I think he's won 47 times. That's an amazing number for a professional golfer. And I think that we are going to sort of, if he says, basically, hey, I'm going to fight this. I'm not going to be like Dustin Johnson and just say I'm good with it. I want my place back on tour. I earned that. It's going to get interesting. And it will get interesting because I think we've seen in a lot of, court cases that, there are legal issues, sure, but it often kind of can come down to what political appointees are sort of certain judges, right? There's a lot of politics that are messing with this. Jared Kushner is a close friend of the people who are running this tour. Ari Fleischer is out there working as the MC of these press conferences. There's a lot of, politics swimming about in this. And so if you've got political appointee judges who don't love the PGA Tour because, they've been sort of steered down that road by certain people, then that's going to get really interesting and complicated, isn't it?
Well, I mean, Kevin Van Valkenburg here on the Rich Eisen Show. You just mentioned how there's politics involved in this LIV Tour and who's behind it and who's friendly with it. I mean, is Newsmax now going to get into the sports rights holder front? And I say that with a little bit of tongue firmly planted in cheek, but it is. Look, anybody who tells a story about how the merger happened in the NFL and in the AFL was television contracts. And if TV starts showing it and people start watching it, then that gives that upstart league, if you will, a little bit more power and a little bit more buzz around it. And so, if the PGA Tour events have fewer stars on it, will the television partners of the PGA Tour start to look around and ring up the number of the LIV Tour and see what's going on? What is the TV? Last one for you is what's the TV aspect of it? Because right now the only way you can see this is online, and that's not a problem. That's how people are watching the show right now. But what do you think, Kevin?
Well, certainly a TV contract somewhere would help us further establish the tour and would make it sort of available to a golf-interested audience that isn't quite embracing streaming like, a younger generation is. I'd say the medium age of golf fans is probably 55 and up. But, I think we also kind of have to sort of grasp that if they got some sort of streaming distribution where they were getting money for it and, that was where broadcast rights were trending. And I think if you look at like the NFL being broadcast on Amazon and Apple and places like that, that there is evidence that other sports are trending towards specifically just streaming, that maybe golf could sort of survive. And maybe that would be, just a different way to look about it. I know that they've tried to get some sort of, broadcast partnership, and they've essentially been kind of turned down or chuckled at. But for every sort of larger star that kind of drifts over there, it makes it a little bit more appealing, right? And how did Fox Fox Sports become a huge...
The NFL.
NFL. They get the NFL in whatever year that was, 1990s, and now, it's a huge media empire. And so, like, what if a smaller place decided to take a shot and say, hey, golf is my kind of thing, and that's what we're going to sort of stake our flag in, and, who knows how it's going to look like in 10 years.
Kevin, thanks for the time. Are you going to the event this weekend? You can do it?
Yeah. I don't think I'll be writing about any of the golf stuff, but I'll be sort of writing about the scene and trying to kind of make sense of it all. And there's apparently, like, kind of rock concerts every night after the golf. I think it's really unclear to me whether any of this is youthful or it's like kind of out of touch old people trying to feel youthful. So I'm going to kind of dig into that and see what I think, if they have actual fans here or people who've been paid to sort of dance with DJ Fat Tony, who apparently is one of the people who's appearing.
Oh, I was like, is it Kid Rock? Is like John Voight the course reporter? I mean, like, what do we got? Like what do we got? Do we know?
Kid Rock did appear. He did perform at Dustin Johnson's wedding. So I feel like he's obviously in Dustin Johnson's Rolodex.
See, you know what? And everybody thought I was just trying to be funny. Oh my gosh! Thanks for the call, Kevin. Appreciate it. We'll chat soon.
You bet.
And it's Kevin Van Valkenburg, everybody. Hey, you watched all the way to the end. Thanks for that. Watch more right here.